Okay, so let's talk about this concept. So hustle porn. The topic of today's talk is hustle porn, the diminishing quality of life. So I was in a room recently. I was having a conversation, and I'm working in this podcast cohort with this organization called On Deck, which is absolutely amazing. Just learning about podcasting. It's really cool because you're like in a room and you literally like have no idea like the base language. It's like a really good, humbling reminder when you're brand new at something and you're like, I have barely any idea what anyone is saying. But I heard this word that was mentioned, and this girl mentioned this word, hustle porn. And she's like, I'm not trying to do hustle porn, whatever. So I started really thinking about it, and I started to do some research. It's a word I hadn't heard before. It was coined, or a term I hadn't heard before. It was coined by one of the founders of Reddit, Alexis Ohanian, who he said this was in 2018. So it's only 2 years ago. So I want to talk about what this is. And I want to talk about some of the impacts that I've seen in my life and I've seen in the entrepreneurial online business and overall culture. Because this really does have deep roots in the American dream and this rugged individualism of creating your own destiny. And I think it can be very, very dangerous. I have seen people use this mentality, mindset, and it's an ideology. Ideas, for everyone that's listening, are so unbelievably powerful that we cannot and we should not ever forget the power of an idea, the power of a belief, and how it can impact all of our decision making. So let's talk about this concept of hustle porn. Hustle porn is what Ohanian calls the fetishization, tough word, I don't normally use that word, fetishization of people, particularly entrepreneurs or employees, often in the tech industry, overworking themselves. He spoke passionately against this topic during this web summit in Lisbon, talking about that the ludicrously long hours can have delirious effects. This is deleterious. I never even heard that word before. I have to look that one up. It's a new one for me. But it has deleterious effects on their physical and mental health, according to Business Insider article. Entrepreneurs can get so caught up in trying to make their business a success that they end up putting their health on the proverbial back burner, which is neither smart nor productive. The author of this particular article, this was an article I found on Inc. about the topic, talks about how they started his first company with his wife, and they were pushing themselves beyond what's healthy, staying up late, getting up early, putting up every waking minute in the business, didn't take time to relax or to unwind, and they really thought about all of the different negative effects long-term it could give you. This idea of hustle porn is the work harder, try harder, grind harder, do more, so that if you do enough, here is an interesting take. This was an article written by a girl named Sarah Nuttycombe. Hustle porn is bullshit. So I found this to be an excellent example, and I'm going to talk about this New York Times article next. But New York Times coined the phenomenon as performative workaholism, or the idea that one must glorify ambition not as a means to an end, but as a lifestyle. So let's really think about this. Here's why I personally believe this idea, this hustle culture, this hustle porn-esque unbelievable amount of work to work harder, try harder, that you can sacrifice everything for some end that's in the future. Here's why I think it's diminishing our quality of life. Because it's not only becoming an unbelievable performance trap, but it's becoming the central tenet to people's life, their self-esteem, and their belief. And Gary Vee, I like a lot of Gary Vee's stuff. And one of the things that I will say, because it's very easy to cast judgment. So I want to be clear. I am not going to eviscerate and judge Gary Vaynerchuk for his personal choices, his personal lifestyle. I also do want to note that he made a marked shift and about a year ago into changing his language around happiness, doing what you love, taking time, because he did start to see, or at least experience, the negative media drawback, if it was an actual drawback he was seeing in people's lives. But this is a good example and this embodiment of ambition as not a means to an end, but as a lifestyle of just working harder and doing more. This comes from 1:37 p.m. Sorry for the really loud gummy bear. Pierce learned how to use the Alexa. He hits the button because he can't say Alexa, and then he says gummy bear. And he puts this unbelievably annoying, obnoxious gummy bear song. And he also knows how to do the volume, so he turns it up to volume 10. So I apologize if that comes on in the background again. But 1:37 p.m. This is from that, which is a media company of Gary Vaynerchuk's. This is one of their parts of their mission statement, their values. The current state of entrepreneurship is bigger than career. It's ambition, grit, and hustle. It's a live performance that lights up your creativity, a sweat session that sends your endorphins coursing, a visionary who expands your way of thinking. From this point of view, not only does one never stop hustling, one never exits a kind of work rapture in which the chief purpose of exercising or attending a concert is to get inspiration that leads back to the desk. So here's where this becomes a major issue. Hold on, let me turn this off. I don't believe it is healthy for us to make our vocational performance greater than our relationships, our marriages, being a parent. I think at any time in life, if we are putting the needs of our kids, the needs of our spouse, the needs of our own mental health and physical rest below vocational success, career success, business success, I believe it's like trying to cut open the golden goose to pull out the eggs. If we don't take care of the most central tenets of our existence, the things that no one else can do other than ourselves, such as being a dad and being a mom and being a sister or a brother, those roles that we have, they're infinitely more important. I think we lose ourselves. I think we lose everything. And I've seen this become so pervasive. Another challenge with this idea of hustle porn and why it's diminishing our quality of life is working harder and hustling harder downplays the creation of systems and efficiencies. It doesn't take into account that working harder never makes sense for the sake of working harder. I think it's really important for us to consider books and a lot of times people, they get addicted to it because we're hiding from our problems. We're hiding from our marital issues. We're hiding our mental health challenges, our personal challenges in our work. It becomes this culturally acceptable workaholism. I remember in some of the industries we're in, people say you work 5 nights, 6 nights, 7 nights a week. The less you sleep, the more you drive, the more you do. And it is well-intentioned. I understand where it comes from. And it's very dangerous, I've found in myself, to make judgments because it's never a fair thing. And there's a large area of gray. But when we talk about that being more important, when did it become a question for us to ask that having more space in a house to then heat, to then cool, to then pay for and taxes, to fill with more stuff, if consumerism and gaining in net wealth was making people happier, then everybody should be the happiest they've ever been in history. But the incidence of mental health issues, relationship issues, failed marriages, escapism, running away with video games, drinking, drugs, pornography, addiction of any kind across the board isn't going down because I believe this attitude, this hustle porn, this work harder, grind harder, do more. And I'll give you a few more examples. I'll give you some of this New York Times article and then some thoughts myself. And I'd love to hear some of your thoughts, some of the questions that you guys have. And I'd love to have a discussion about this a bit more. I believe that it's leading to this almost intoxicating loneliness that people are having. And it's this idea I've been thinking about that I think might be worthy. I think I'm going to start with an essay on it, but I believe that people are becoming so intoxicated. They're so lonely that it's becoming intoxicating. Our decision making and our ability to be able to discern what is making sense for us long term. I believe that people are so unconnected with community, with friendships, with family, that we now have a unbelievably exploding industry, which I think has a lot of merit. I'm a part of that. I'm starting to call Rent a Friend, coaching, mentorship, and community. People are so lonely, and they're told to work so hard and to forget their own needs. This unbelievable desire to hustle, that it's diminishing people's ability to even have the things that mattered. And they're now taking what they have, the resource they have, their money, to pay for the thing that they could have found without having to do that. Now, does it mean that we should have small goals and dreams? No, I just think it's the syntax and the order of this, at least for myself. And for anyone that's listening, I want to be really clear. I am never passing any judgments or saying that I have things figured out or trying to sit on this horse. I've just been regularly talking about and basically bleeding my own thoughts out for things that I struggle to understand and try to figure out for myself with what's right, what's wrong. Maybe some of you guys can relate. I am always wondering, like, is this right? Is this the right direction to go? So I do want to just throw that in there. But quick quote. This is from that 2018 Web Summit Technology Conference I mentioned, where this term was coined from Alexis Ohanian, the co-founder of Reddit. Hustle porn is one of the most toxic, dangerous things in the tech industry right now. And you can extrapolate this. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of examples about the online business space, because there's whole articles about that itself. But I know so much of it comes from the States. It's this idea that unless you are suffering, unless you are grinding, unless you are working every hour of every day and posting about it on Instagram, you're not working hard enough. And it's absolute, utter bullshit. It's just so untrue. Here's another point. Here's another few topics to take away. And then I'm going to give you something that I've come up with myself that maybe can add some value to you guys. And then I'll have some people come up. Anybody has any thoughts, please keep note of them, write them down, and we'll take it from there. But in online business, we boast about the ability to make a living without the 9-to-5 commitment. Yet the hustle porn mentality is alive and well within the online community. The constant bombardment of Facebook ads from online hustlers and gurus shouting about their hustle, along with the newest course they're offering, which, by the way, engenders guilt and shame in everyone, no matter how hard you work. This idea of work harder, all it does is it constantly condemns and shames you and guilts you into doing the things that you shouldn't be doing away from the things that you should. Inevitably, forever to the bottom till we get used up. Because if we're drawing our value from our efforts and we're only saying our efforts are as good as working harder than other people or ourselves, the net bottom is dying. Because if that's where we draw our value, where does it end? Where do we ever go from there? As an online entrepreneur, everywhere you turn, someone or some signs telling you not to stop, to keep working, grinding, and hustling, no matter what, that everything you're giving up now and risking will be worth it in the end. The very real health risks of overworking should not be overlooked. Burnout can take an immense toll on mental health and relationships with others. Working 55 hours a week or more can make you 40% more likely to develop atrial fibrillation, it's different heart issues, where your heartbeat's not accurate. A heart condition that can skyrocket your chance of getting a stroke within 10 years. Imagine having that choice. Hello, Pierce. Hello, everybody. Stand by, everyone. Please take a pause here. Oh, wow, guys. Wow, that's so cool. Daddy's working. There's like 100 people listening here. I will play with you guys right after. Oh, baby. Okay. Sorry, Callan lost the kids there. Anyway, okay. So I'm going to end with this, and I'd love to have some conversation about this and any questions or thoughts that people have. Two things. Number one, here's an article, Personal Finance. I interviewed over 200 millionaires, and half of them followed the same straightforward path to wealth. They called it the saver investor path. It is nothing like what people like to think wealth looks like. It's nothing like what people think success looks like. It's people that wore regular clothes, regular cars. They had regular homes. They went on regular trips. But what they did, everything about their lives, this article says, screams, I am not rich. But it says that they've done the following things. They've consistently saved 20% more of their net pay. They've invested their savings prudently. by paying attention to making sure that they're putting things, whether it be real estate, it be in investments, it be in index funds, whatever it is for you. I'm not a financial person, but investing it. And they gave it time over decades to grow. These were contractors. These are teachers. These are people without unbelievable incomes. Now, I believe you can accelerate it tremendously. We've put together this 3-step program that has 100% chance of helping people build a 7-figure net worth that we think is amazing. We think it's proprietary. It's unique to how we approach things. It's first off learning how to manage your money, how to understand your relationship with money. Second of all, it's starting to increase your income by getting better positions that are going to honor your work-life balance. Just to be clear, it's not 100-hour work weeks, but making more because you're worth more and building a business. We use some online businesses that we feel fit what we need, and we help people grow their income using those 2 different ways. So then number 3, once they have the understanding of how money works, and then they also are making more money, they don't raise their lifestyle, and they invest 20, 30, eventually 50% of their income so they can totally be financially free. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's what I wrote out, because I was feeling this weekend doing this cohort and doing all the things that we're doing. I fall into the trap of starting to feel like no matter what you do, it's not enough. If anyone's here that feels like you're working and you're trying and you're working and you're trying and you're working and you're trying and you're comparing yourself to people that have huge companies, amazing lives, maybe they're further along relationally, it is so easy to lose sight of what matters. And I think it's vital that all of us take some time to get clear on what that looks like. So this is something I wrote out for myself. I'll share with you guys if it helps you at all, and then I'll open it up for questions, I promise. And this is just a personal creed for me that I wrote out just as I was working through my thoughts. My primary crowning achievements in my life are, number 1, my marriage and the intimacy and strength of that relationship. And number 2, my children, teaching, hearing, and empowering them to be who they are. I do this primarily. Secondarily, my vocational and personal pursuits are to, number 1, be an example of excellence and overcoming, as well as vision for my kids and family. And number 2, to serve the greater good of humanity, to create a happier, healthier world for my kids, my community, and everyone in it moving forward. The size and shape of these endeavors is irrelevant to their purpose. As long as we are striving to become more in a healthy way that honors our values, and we are deeply serving and helping the people and the task at hand, how big it is or not is not my concern. It's that we're doing it in a healthy way and we're doing what's in front of us right. And then I wrote for myself as just a note, as a reminder, so I don't get back to that kind of a darker thinking place. Do not chase fame, glory, or prideful position. Any increase in influence may come or it may go. Stay true to the creed, and all of my life will always be ordered well. Steadfast and genuine to foundational beliefs, authentic to your unique voice, and lastly, live joyfully and have times of carefree laughter, because too much seriousness drains our world of color. I think us focusing on the family values that have always mattered ultimately will always trump any type of vocational success, because one without the other is an empty prison for any of us. So that ends my soliloquy. Anyone has any questions or thoughts or wants to pop up here, love to have you guys. Just raise your hands. Hopefully this is helpful. Matt makes fun of me when I say that, but I do hope it's helpful. If anybody wants to ask, please raise your hand. Cool. Any thoughts? Please certainly hop up here. Any thoughts or comments or anything at all? All right, cool. Maddie baby, go for it.
I just appreciate you setting this up, and I always fall into that trap of never feeling like I'm doing enough and comparing myself to the next person. And how do you find that balance? I guess because I think some people fall into that trap of feeling like they're doing too much, and then some people fall into that trap of they hear something like this and they're not doing enough and maybe need to do more. So how do you find, what is the balance, and how do you find that balance between being able to work hard, because it does take some hard work to build a successful business, where it's not at the expense of, your priorities, but also making sure that you're not taking it too easy and you're not being unrealistic with your expectations with the output of your work at the same time.
Yeah. So I think that what that comes down to, first off, I think everyone, Matt, needs to get really clear on what they want. One of the things I've noticed is I feel like people feel like they should impose desires on other people, which I just don't think to be a fair thing. Some people don't want to do any more than what they're doing. And who is anyone to disagree with that? Is the person who's a farmer or a teacher or a doctor in their small town less valuable or less important because they don't have an Instagram following and they don't make as much money? I just don't think that to be true. So I think first off is, what do you want? Now, if you have goals and dreams, it's important that we put our values first, and everyone that knows me, and for those of you who don't know, I mean, Cal and I have built a multi-million-dollar company. We worked way too hard for seasons, and I didn't get to this part of the other article. Entrepreneurs and people that build things, hustling and working hard is supposed to be a season. That's the key. And I think that's maybe the answer to your question that I failed to enter, where you're working hard to build systems, populate teams, to build things that go beyond you, because that's where ultimately you're able to have a life and you're able to live your values. So I think that it's getting really clear with your expectations and your input, and having a professional or a coach or a guide. I'm a huge proponent of having a coach, having someone that you have as further along the path that you are paying, that's giving you tangible, accountable, things to do. That for certain, I know in life is absolutely invaluable for sure, which I think can help with that. Freaking love you. Any thoughts, Jackie Moretta? Hey.
I totally loved this total conversation. I was really introduced to this kind of concept of maybe the hustle not being everything when I read this book probably like a year ago. It was called To Hell with the Hustle.
Yep.
Have you read that book?
I haven't, but I heard of it and I saw it in my research with these articles I was going through.
Yeah, well, I started reading it. I started reading it with my husband, and he immediately hated the book. This is BS. This is nonsense. And what it makes me think of is that I like what you say about really knowing what the goal is, what you're trying to achieve, because we can get caught up in the rat race of things that we're trying to accomplish. And I often think as entrepreneurs, we become good and build skill sets in different areas, and it feels good to do things that you're good at.
Absolutely.
So you can get wrapped up, and that's the conversation that we had. Like, just because we are good at building businesses, just because we are helping people, does not mean like we need to give from a full cup.
Right.
And it's not all about grinding. Like, yes, that sounds trendy, but I don't know how many people who are genuinely happy, who are examples in my life, really live a life like that. I was also reading The Emotionally Healthy Leader, and was talking about taking a day off every week and stuff like that. So I think it's really developing a balance, but what is balance anyway? But yeah, that was my 2 cents.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And I think that the biggest danger, which you might have experienced and I've experienced, is we use working and feeling good about doing something as an escape. So it's like you're struggling mentally, you're struggling with your emotional health, and you work harder to get like a boost. Your marriage is struggling, so you're working harder. And it just becomes such a toxic, circular kind of a deal,
Yeah, it's a tricky trap. You go where maybe you get applause, you go to social media where you get maybe attention. And that's something that I think growing leadership in the world is so important, to have good examples of really understanding these things, because that's all about what the generation right now is growing up with.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, I have a meeting at 5:45, but I'm going to push it 5 minutes. So I'm going to try to get through. I got 3 more people. Palesa, or is Palisa? I'm so sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Please correct me.
You're totally fine, Anthony. Thank you so much. It's Palesa.
Palesa. Nice to meet you.
It's very nice to meet you as well. Thank you so much for this. This is so educational. I think just being a woman and being single right now, with someone that doesn't necessarily have that family dynamic in a sense of having kids yet and a husband. How does, and I guess it's a little bit out of your court, but again, I